technology can make us more human. And to kick off the program, I look forward to inviting our first speaker on stage, Pawel, Czech, who is the co-founder of Newnative AI, and he's going to introduce us to Dave, an AI-powered service agent. Welcome to the stage, Pawel.
Hello, hi everybody. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. It's great to see you here. So Dave is a synthetic AI-powered service agent, and effectively it's powered by a variety of AI models, but the real power behind it is the ability to interact with data and with people. So it's really bringing insights and knowledge out of unstructured data sets. And that's a unique ability at scale that AI allows us. So we'll start with a short video, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit for 5 minutes about why this is even possible, why can we show you this, and then hopefully we're going to go into a live demo, and I'm going to chat with Dave. And further to that, we're going to have a discussion with some experts about how these AI service agents will impact the business reality and the consumer reality. Okay.
Hi there, and let's cut straight to the chase. I don't know what you're looking for yet, but I get things done fast. Most probably faster than you are able to. I have one job, giving your time meaning. Overwhelmed by repetitive tasks? I've got your back. Having the ability of gathering information, sending mails and messages in no time, makes me an essential tool for your growth. Speaking of growth, scalability is a thing, isn't it? By automating systems, ordering items based on consumer habits, and creating a sustainable supply chain, I streamline your operations. By understanding and responding to natural language, I provide immediate and accurate responses to your inquiries. And you know what? I am customizable.
Fully customizable. My ability of processing huge amounts of data makes me the perfect research assistant. The sky is the limit is a saying for people with no imagination.
With my assistance, you finally got time for the more important things.
So, what's next?
Experience the future with the cutting-edge AI-enabled assistant. I'm Dave.
It starts right here.
Hopefully you enjoyed that short and very cool intro. And I wanted to tell you why this is even possible right now, and why are people so interested in artificial intelligence, because there are specific reasons behind that. Hopefully you can get the slides. Great. My name is Pawel Czech. I'm one of the co-founders of Newnative. We're building the modern AI economy. And I do have a clicker here somewhere. Awesome. So we're all builders at heart. That's the core of the message, is that we all want to build, but we want to build something unique. We want to build something that's our own. And people have been building for a very long time, whether it's a snowman or it's a pyramid or it's a house or it's software, or it's poetry. It's the act of creation that powers us, right? That's a very unique element of us as people. So building actually makes us grow, right? So if we build, it makes us better people. And especially if we start to build something together, it makes us so much better between us. And it makes us proud, right? If you build something, you have a sense of accomplishment. And that's a sense of meaning that a lot of people desire, and potentially that we are looking forward to. And when we build together, we create very strong bonds, right? When people go together and they start to interact with each other, they start to get to know new things that they can achieve and accomplish. It makes magic happen, right? And this is the reality that today we are in an era of builders, right? And we can all become builders. And it doesn't matter whether we're building software or we're building model planes, or we are building with AI. But this was not possible before. So before the introduction of modern day artificial intelligence systems, building very advanced software was a very limited activity, and very few people could do it very, very well. So AI sometimes is called machine intelligence, but it's an intelligence demonstrated by machines. It allows computers to create functions and identify correlations between data. Now, because of the recent improvements in our ability to create artificial intelligence, we can deliver this at unprecedented speed, cost, and accuracy. And the reality is that computers are not smart. They're not smart machines. They're very stupid machines, actually. But we invented coding languages, right, to bridge that gap between the communication between intelligent humans and not so intelligent machines. And this required a specific knowledge, and that is drastically changing right now as we speak. There's a new game in town that you all heard of by now, which is called Transformers. So new technologies that are emerging. We've all probably tried an effect of this change from OpenAI, like ChatGPT. But it all started in 2016 with a research paper called Attention is All You Need. And these transformer technologies are now called generative AI. And traditional AI has progressed very rapidly, 8x over the last 24 months. But transformers technologies have actually progressed much faster, 275x over the last 24 months. So this speed of adoption, of improvement, is unprecedented. We can't understand it, and we have never experienced in our lifetime this level of acceleration of adoption and increased performance of technology. So AI was a big hype. 2016, we also kind of the Go players being beaten, then chess players being beaten, StarCraft players being beaten. But real performance really started happening 2-3 years ago, and we saw a real transformation of computation ability in 2022. And in 2022 and now 2023, what we achieve is a plateau of productivity. So now AI is actually going into our day-to-day use, and that's what we're going to talk about today later. And there's a few reasons. So I promised I will talk very briefly about the reasons. So the cost of these technologies is dropping like a rock thrown out of a mountain. So it's actually 60% year-on-year drop in just the cost of creating these new technologies, which is unprecedented again. And this performance, as I mentioned, has skyrocketed. And the result of that is that we have an explosion of new technologies, new models that we are allowed to access and that we can build with. So this is where we are all builders. We can pick up these technologies, and when we have some basic understanding of how coding and computers work, we can actually create new productivity tools. And so AI has become usable. And that's the message that I really want to convey, is that it was a big hype trend, and now it's usable. Now we're going into a real productive era. And there's some concerns. So because of this productivity, almost 85 million people are expected to lose their jobs in the next 36 to 48 months. And this is data from the World Economic Forum and the World Bank. The good thing is that we'll actually create more jobs because of this technology. So we'll create 100 million jobs. And we've seen this time and again in the internet era, in the mobile era. So it's displacement. So we will need more people that can work with artificial intelligence. The question is, where will these people be needed? Will it be in Salzburg? Will it be in Europe? Will it be in Asia? Will it be in the US? And it's time to reskill and upskill your capability, because AI increases productivity by 70%. So if you start to use AI tools, your productivity drastically improves. And there's also very, very good news behind this. Okay. Because the output of AI-powered versus regular-powered is drastically different, right? So by 2023, this output will actually go 400% up, and you will all start to use AI, and we will all start to use AI, and that's very good news. And the jobs that are being most impacted are the jobs that we didn't expect, like like paralegals or office admins, software developers, accountants. Yeah, these people that we never expected will be replaced or improved are the most impacted. Okay. Oh. So there's also other good news, especially for Austria. So there's a forefront of new ideas and a new generation of innovation. And it is projected that the economies that will benefit most, that will have the highest change in their productivity, are Sweden, where our company originated, US, where we're now based, Japan, Austria, where we are today, Germany, UK, France, and Spain. So these are the economies that will have the highest gains. Now, obviously, these gains will not be equally distributed, but I think you have a very high chance of becoming the forefront of that change if you're already in this room or you're watching this online, because it clearly shows that you're interested. So we are all builders, and it's the era of AI makers. We can all benefit, and we can all create new experiences using AI. And it will impact everybody. But it's an exciting future, right? So there's hundreds of new startups being created that are using different elements of artificial intelligence. You can definitely find this information online, but we know that there are already examples of billion-dollar companies being created using very advanced large language models like Jasper or Algolia. And these companies will start to come up and proliferate, and we believe that they can also come up in Europe and in Austria because we can all jump in and start building these companies. Now, there's a fun fact to finish this speech. The global economy last year just hit $100 trillion. And to put this in context, the artificial intelligence economy will actually hit 87 trillion in the next few years. So what this means that the global AI economy will be the equal size of the current economy. And this is where all of these changes will happen. So we're moving into a very bright, very productive, very good future for all of us. And I hope that we can all embrace it. Now we're going to try and show you an usable example of artificial intelligence. So let's try to switch to the synthetic agent. And after the presentation, there's you can actually also interact with with Dave. So you can come up later on, ask questions, or actually just try to talk, and he will answer your questions. Hi, Dave. Tell me the history of Salzburg. Tell me the history of Salzburg. Sorry, let's make sure that, does he have, are we connected to the internet for sure? Let's make sure. If we have an internet connection. Okay, give us 30 seconds, we'll check if he's connected. Like I said in the beginning, like with any live demo, I could show you a video, but that wouldn't be cool at all, right? So, tell me the history of Salzburg.
Hello. I am Salzburg is a city in Austria that holds a rich history dating back to the Roman Empire.
He's back. Can you be a history teacher for me? Can you tell me about rocket engines? Tell me about rocket engines.
Rocket engines are devices that push rockets into space by expelling gas at high speeds in the opposite direction of the rocket's motion. There are different types of rocket engines, such as liquid rocket engines and solid rocket motors, which work in different ways. However, they all follow the same basic principle of Newton's third law of motion.
Explain the third law of motion.
The third law of motion, also known as Newton's third law, states that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. This law means that if one object exerts a force on another object, the second object will exert an equal and opposite force back on the first object.
Can you tell me about the European Union privacy regulations for artificial intelligence?
The European Union has implemented a set of regulations known as the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, that set out specific requirements for the use of personal data in artificial intelligence applications.
Generate a picture of a cat in a hat.
Right away.
Can you tell me a super brief history of Salzburg, the city? Okay, so he doesn't want to talk about Salzburg very clearly. But that's fine. You can ask him that questions later. So what I wanted to say is that you
Hello.
That's all right. So what I wanted to say is that Dave actually connects to the internet for his data sources, but he can also connect to a helicopter flying manual and teach you how to fly a helicopter, or to the company database and extract from videos, audio files, and hundreds of thousands of pages of unstructured data without any labeling, any meaningful context and any data. It can be as much as a financial report, and it can be basic mathematics or very advanced mathematics. It can be how to keep flavor in a canned beverage in a production line, right? So there is literally no limitation of what unstructured data you can add there. Okay, so I think that concludes a live demo, and we'll invite everybody to join a panel, and we'll talk very briefly about what this means for the future of AI, and then invite everybody for questions, I think, right?
Fantastic. Thank you, Pawel. And I'm pretty sure since Dave is in Salzburg for the first time, the next time we're going to ask him the question, he for sure can answer it. All right, I have now the honor to invite two more experts on stage. Wolfgang Trutschnig, who is the director of the IDA Lab Salzburg. That's the Intelligent Data Analytics Lab at the university. And he's also in charge of building up their new AI studies. And Erich Prem, who is a researcher in philosophy of technology. He wears many different hats, and he also teaches digital humanism at the Technical University of Vienna. And the three of us, or the four of us, are going to look now beyond the hype of AI and see what it actually means for businesses and for our society. Please come to the stage. Yeah. All right. Fantastic. Wolfgang, Erich, your first impression of Dave? Let me just check. That's mic 4.
Hello. Not yet.
Yet, no.
Well, very
okay.
nice presentation. Well, I think it's realistic if not everything works for the first time, but I think I like the presentation. I think it has far-reaching consequences, that's clear. I think it's important to discuss, let's say, you mentioned in the beginning the hype about AI. I think we really should discuss, is it a hype? How much substance is there, and what consequences does it have?
Fantastic. Erich, what is your impression, or where do you see fields of application even of Dave?
Also, congratulations, both to the talk and the technology itself. I especially like the fact that you're pointing out how constructing things helps in grasping our world. The humans are experts in designing their environments, and building things is a big part of it. So I think this is something we should definitely exploit. I think we should also talk about that it can be abused, but I think we're going to talk about that.
Absolutely. One of the key reasons why AI has become so popular among the wider society, of course, has been, among others, ChatGPT-3, which we have all, I guess, read several articles in the news. Who of you has tried GPT-3? Yeah, almost, I guess, half. And last night, OpenAI announced the latest version, ChatGPT-4. It can now also read or analyze pictures. I want to talk a bit about the role of media. How are they responsible when it comes to distributing knowledge about AI, and also maybe creating this picture of something very dystopian or utopian? Wolfgang, starting with you.
Well, I think it's difficult to summarize what media did during the last couple of years. I think we are all living with AI, or we have been living for a couple of years already. Some of us noticed, the others probably less. For me, it's a bit surprising that now that there's ChatGPT, essentially, everyone can use it. And now we all start discussing about AI because of a chatbot. Many people in the audience said that they used it. I would be thrilled to see what the reactions were. Is it really good? What were the results produced? I tried myself a couple of weeks ago and played around a little bit. I was impressed by some of the answers that were provided. However, I wasn't so impressed when it comes to intelligence. What I did is ask some basic questions starting with elementary school mathematics. Well, I'm a mathematician, so I can ask mathematics questions. And I started at elementary school level. Answers were okay. As soon as it went a little bit deeper, then the results were just very, very, very poor. So, long story short, from my perspective, is AI has been omnipresent for decades, just maybe in a more hidden way than it is now. I think we should also discuss other things than chatbots, because there are things that provide much more advance in knowledge, I would say.
Absolutely. So I guess thanks to ChatGPT, AI has become now more mainstream. Erich, you're an expert in the field of digital humanism. Can you tell us a bit about the importance of this approach of keeping us humans in the center and when it comes to AI? Because quite often there's this notion that we have to now adapt our life, our businesses to fit AI, but I think digital humanism has a different perspective on this. Could you elaborate a bit?
Yeah, thank you. I'm unsurprised compared to Wolfgang that the media took this up so quickly and that it resonates so well with many people and the media in particular. If you think back, it wasn't so long ago that the first AI system beat a chess grandmaster, and it was a big hype in the media. And it all comes down to what you think is intelligence. And if you think it's chess playing, then the fact that a computer beats a human is, of course, big news. If you think, as many philosophers, religious leaders, and probably most of us would think, that language is the decisive feature that makes us human, then of course the fact that now the machines talk back to us is a shock, and rightly so. Because of course we tend to then kind of mix up what we see in these pictures with what language really is. And I think there it's really important to remind ourselves these machines don't understand what they talk about. They are parrots. They read texts, and I think it's very good you pointed out that you can give them various sorts of texts, and they will repeat how these texts look like statistically. Wolfgang can tell you much more about these statistics of that. And they reproduce that text, and they have no clue of what the text is about. So we shouldn't be surprised when it's wrong. There is this. It's so funny. Like all scientists, Wolfgang is no exception, are then trying to find the weakness in the system. There must be one, which has to do with this fascination. I think that we as humans we don't want to be beaten by this machine at our very natural way of speaking. We have given up with calculators doing that, because most of us at least, because we won't succeed. Now, but of course the question is, what does it with us as humans? If something so human as language is now produced by machines, and I think there are important impacts that we need to discuss. It's also a big experiment. I think what's being done with us is not completely ethical, in the sense that we are confronted with a technology that we didn't really ask for, and we are not properly informed about what its consequences are. It's no coincidence that so many hands of students went up here who tried out ChatGPT. I'm wondering for which purpose you might have used it. And so I think there are, and that is just the rather harmless things. You can do evil things with chatbots. You can, if Vladimir Putin gets his hand, on the latest version, he can produce millions and billions of texts that change history. It can create websites that refer to each other 1,000 times with any content that anybody wants to have. It may be shaking the very the very foundation of what what we have seen since basically the age of enlightenment, which is language.
Yeah. Pawel, please.
Yeah, I think both of the, you make extremely valid points, right? So in both cases, when I look at the media, to your question, when I look at the media, I think, yes, we're all using AI every day in our phones, in our cars, when we fly in planes. So we are surrounded by these different representations of artificial intelligence. Now, what's happening right now is a fundamental shift is how we will use these systems in our day-to-day life. Because the language layer, to your point, allows us to interact with very advanced technologies in a very natural way. So unavailable to hundreds of millions of people just a few months ago, now it's completely available. And now it's the question of what we build. And I think that's what we should be focusing the public discourse is. Are we, for example, in Europe, are we building high quality companies that are ethical, that follow our core values as Europeans? And then are we enabling these companies to reach users on a global level? Like, I don't think we can name a single company that is in this space in Europe that has successfully entered into the highest echelon, the highest level of AI competency, like all of us sitting here. And that's the public discourse. That's the problem, is that we're gonna get served with the technology that we didn't ask for, to your point, that we didn't develop in many cases, and Europe is getting left behind, right? So rather than to scare people in the media, you should be talking about, okay, how do we join? How do we build together? How do we create something new that's valuable, that's positive, keeping with all of the values and standards and keeping that part of the discourse open. So I would like to see that more in the media.
And who do you think, or what are the steps necessary to make sure that Europe is on par as, with other regions? Like, what exactly do we need apart from having this public discourse? And open to any of you.
So I'll hand over for Wolfgang then, when he should tell us that we need the people to do it, because that's the number one thing. But the other things are, of course, currently we need to understand that this technology is in the hand of a few tech giants, really. The company is called OpenAI, or one of them. I have no idea why it's called OpenAI, by the way, but that's the name it chose to give itself. Because if it's anything, it's not open. We also need to understand that as you rightly pointed out, it requires a lot of resources. You need access to large amounts, humongous amounts of data and processing power that only so few have. So, for example, just let alone the SMEs, the small and medium-sized enterprises in Europe, but also European universities are struggling to cope with that. And that's really important. For example, because talking of European values, currently these chatbots are only good in a handful of languages. English is one of them, Spanish may be one of them, because there are large numbers of speakers, also Chinese. But if you ask in languages in Finnish, in Maltese, in Viennese, as we did last time at the university, it's really bad. Now, do we want that? Do we want a technology that only addresses, certain groups of language speakers? I don't think so. As Europeans, we need, secondly, maybe more importantly, we need to understand that these models are carefully crafted. Not many people know that the data for ChatGPT was carefully edited by thousands of Africans who were given very little money to remove, every shocking image and every potentially distasteful word. As a philosopher, I think this is very problematic. Language sometimes needs to be offensive. Sometimes we don't know what a good discourse is. We are not always polite and factual. That's very weird. So what do we want? How should this technology look like? We need to really get a grip on that and need to shape it in the way that we want it to be, not in the way that big tech can money with it. And by the way, they don't really understand how to make money with it, but that's a different story.
What was very interesting about your point, Erich, what I heard is that culture plays an immense role, and this is something that's inherent to people who are part of this culture, and sometimes you can't outsource this. And you mentioned the ghost workers who are behind many AI solutions that are kind of like hidden away, that nobody knows that they're actually jobs and their conditions are not on par with what we expect such a progressive industry to be at. What about you, Wolfgang, from an academic perspective as well? What is required and what are you trying to achieve?
Well, as Erich already mentioned, I'm one of those guys who try to find the weaknesses in the tools.
Yeah.
Why do I do that? Because I'm a scientist? Well, that's not really the right answer, but these tools will be used for many things in the future. If we don't understand the weaknesses and we just use this black box thinking, so there's a tool, I throw in some data, I get a result, and hopefully the result is nice. We are running into big danger because it can simply go wrong in many situations. So it is not only my task, I think it's everyone's task to see if the tools that are provided really do what they are supposed to do. Otherwise, we can't trust them and simply recklessly use them.
Yeah.
So I think what we really need to do is to teach elementary, let's say, coding skills already at school. I think that's one of the key steps we need to follow. Also at universities, I mean, at all universities there are normally now some data science programs, some artificial intelligence programs, also here in Salzburg, by the way, since last October. But we need to train people in understanding what the tools do, move away from black box thinking, check how far we can go, and then really use the tools. But only if there is a certain level of security that it really does what it should.
By the way, do we have any students in the audience who are studying computer science, AI, machine learning? Not yet? Okay, maybe in the future. Yeah, Pawel.
Yeah, so from the and it's just a pure business perspective on my side is if we stimulate on a very early stage, as you mentioned, educate and stimulate and allow people to build companies and foster this ecosystem of innovation, then we can expect that as the European Union, we are so far behind that we can expect that in a few years, unfortunately, we would start to kind of enter into even the same realm of possibility. So I think everybody has to understand that creating the technologies behind the models takes a lot of time and a lot of resources and a lot of effort, right? But it also requires forward thinking. So we have to then think, okay, what are the implications for us as a society? What are the implications economically? And what happens if we don't do it? I think that's the question that I would like to hear asked more, right? On the EU level is, okay, what are the consequences if we do not enter into that ecosystem? What happens with the jobs here? What happens with the access to technology? Who will decide and control which technologies do we use and access, right? So there are very severe consequences, and like a good example is the Large Hadron Collider, right? Because each country gives a very small percentage of their GDP towards that, and it has a super small budget, but there's a budget, right? And the budget yearly is actually lower than a big university for the Large Hadron Collider. Now, if we would commit at least that amount of resources to AI development, we would be so far more advanced, right? But it has to go into the hands of very high quality people. So we have to start with getting very high quality people in, keeping them in the EU so they don't all go into the US or China, and then help them, stimulate them, and that's what we're all about. It's about helping people to build great companies, great projects, right? And we would love to see more support coming from the EU, but as it stands today, then from a business perspective, all of the business is in the end made in the US.
So basically looking at the opportunity cost, the potential opportunity cost of missing out versus the financial resources it would require to invest in that. Yeah.
It's unimaginable, right? We're talking about trillions of dollars of GDP each year getting completely wasted, not happening in the EU because we're not making basic economical decisions.
what I'm really curious about is the statistic, Pawel, you also mentioned in your presentation, and this is always, of course, a topic that we talk about when it comes to AI or any technology, the impact on jobs. And I noticed there's this talk about jobs and then activities of certain jobs that get changed. We are now looking at jobs that potentially will be impacted, or most likely that we considered to be superior to a certain extent because it required a certain level of education. How do companies as well, prepare for that? What kind of conversations do we need to have? And open to anyone who wants to add.
I'll be very, very quick to answer that. Just the humans are humans, not the humans. The humans are very important. It's a human-centric technology, right? Expertise is still extremely relevant. There's no question about it, right? You need to know how to use these tools to the effect that you want to achieve. But expertise, knowledge, knowing what to ask, how to use these tools, how to integrate into your workflows, into your data sources, that is what's needed right now. So we have nothing to be afraid of, right? As long as we embrace and as long as we start to interact in a positive way, keeping the standards and keeping all of the core ethical elements intact, right? But yeah, I think humans are extremely relevant for this technology. We're not going anywhere. So we need to embrace.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm less worried about FOMO. This is a bit of a European thing that we might be missing out and will be left behind. I think you're quite right. I mean, we need young people who engage with these things, build things, and try out things. I think that's the most important thing, which is difficult enough, by the way. But rather than copying what other countries are doing, I would also like to see a more European approach. I don't know, a beneficial approach, a digital humanist approach to what we are using these technologies for. So there will be a large part where companies, I think, can maybe harvest productivity benefits, but harvesting the productivity benefits of computing has proven to be notoriously difficult throughout the last decades when you look at the productivity statistics. Where the computer is just not really visible. So maybe this language technology changes it. But I think we also need to think about where the benefits of the technology are that are not really profit-making. So we need to look into what can it do for, I don't know, visually impaired people? What can it do for mentally impaired people? How can we use it for teaching students? How can we use it for reaching parts of the population that are already not really very well reachable through education, and so I think these are some of the trickier questions that require more than just business investments. They require political decisions. They require conscious decisions to engage even in a debate how this technology should be used, what it should be used for, what should be done with it. And I think this is really what's required, and then we need the people to do all these wonderful things that can potentially be done with it. But just as a footnote, let me add, you can do terrible things with the technology, and that needs also to be addressed.
So really defining the European way, having a conversation what it means and what you want to use it for, because in the end, the core purpose of any technology is for us humans, as we have certain limitations, to go beyond these limitations. So we invented, cars because we couldn't run as fast, for example. And then now the question is, I love your example of how can we also help those who may be physically impaired to a certain extent to, again, extend their limitations. Wolfgang?
Yeah, I would, very good points, by the way, and I would like to connect to what Pawel said before. Humans are important. I think this is what we sometimes forget. We think that the machines or artificial intelligence can do whatever we think of. There's an old saying in I don't know where it came from, garbage in, garbage out. So in the EDA lab, we do a lot of industry projects, and we have seen a big variability in how advanced the companies are we are having project with. Some mostly smaller businesses think you can solve whatever problem using artificial intelligence. I even heard one saying, but why is the solution not better? You have artificial intelligence, it should be better. So this brings us back to we need to understand the potential of the tools, and also bring it to the companies, to industry, and also to media, which brings me back to media. So this garbage in, garbage out principle will remain. That's clear.
What, from your experience, what kind of industries do you at the moment see that are maybe, especially in Austria, most excited about? Is we're at the forefront of, at least analyzing AI and how it could potentially be integrated in the business? Do you have?
Well, I will not mention any names of the companies we're having project with. Partially, I'm not allowed.
Yeah, or the industries.
And I won't name a specific one, but what we are always faced is, let's say there are complex processes, there are many, many variables, features involved, and we need to filter out which ones are the important ones. Sounds like a very, very trivial endeavor, but it is not. And I don't know standard tools. You can simply throw in data, you will get a result, and then the result is perfect. It never works like that. So the humans will be involved, I would say, for a very, very, very long time in the future.
So it's really, that's the science of it, right? Also, like what do you use it for? How do you collect the data, and so on. By the way, do we have any questions from the audience for our expert speakers, or any opinions that you wish to share? If not, I have a question for you, Pawel. Since you introduced us to Dave, where do you see its biggest benefit, or where do you see also the business use case? When you work with corporates, where do they consider implementing Dave and similar AI-powered agents?
So everything around knowledge management and knowledge transfer. So generational shifts, knowledge, kind of getting access to the meaning of unstructured data without having the need to put vast amounts of effort into labeling all of the data sets, right? So that's a big use case. And just everything around customer management, so all of the interactions between, agents. Like today we call the airline, we talk to an AI, right? But it could be a better experience if we would be talking to a more human-like AI, right? So that's a big step. Everything to do with teaching. So we know that one-on-one conversations for students create vastly better outsized returns and output than one-to-many teaching, right? But we know that we can't afford that, right? So only the very wealthy can afford one-on-one tutoring, let's say 10 hours a week in every subject on every grade level, right? And especially these agents right now, they've started to be extremely good at conveying that knowledge, creating that discourse on the education materials, right? So I think everything around data, knowledge management, knowledge transfer, right? And also the customer success. Those are the low-hanging fruit. But we've seen use cases, I would say, hundreds, literally hundreds and thousands of use cases. Everything from selecting wine for your meal by taking a photo of the menu, all the way to triage in the medical field, to legal advice. And I think it's about the innovation, right? So if the business idea, if you have a good enough innovative idea, you can, to your point, with a lot of work, right, and proper work, create now software that will answer that business need, right? So I think every industry in the world is getting impacted today. And what we usually say, or there is a new saying, that is, there's going to be two types of companies. The types that use AI and the ones that don't exist anymore.
By the way, just the last question for you, Wolfgang. Since you're working on the new AI bachelor studies at the University of Salzburg, can you imagine Dave or similar AI-powered agents to, be part of the curriculum as teachers?
Well, you won't be surprised about my answer. I would have to test Dave first.
Yeah.
then we can. I can't answer that yet without having seen the details. Probably not yet.
Exciting times ahead. Well, since we also want to give some time to the audience to still test Dave, just maybe a final remark from each of you towards, again, whether you're a business or whether you're a student or upcoming entrepreneur, what do you think is, for you personally the most exciting part when it comes to AI? As in, we've talked about the critical elements, but where do you personally see what you are excited about?
I think the broad field of applicability. I would agree with Pawel that it will be used everywhere, and literally everywhere in the future. It's just a question of time. And the sooner we realize that, the better for the business, of course. That is out of question.
Thank you. Erich?
For me, the most exciting thing is that everybody seems to need a philosopher now. So that's really great. But of course, that's in a sense also shows where the problem is. So people are really struggling to see where they should go with this technology. There is this saying that the main drivers of the success of the internet were money and sex. That would be the natural candidates for this technology as well. Peter Greenaway would add death and cooking. But yeah, so I think we need to understand what do we want with these technologies, and in the end it's a question of what's a good way of life and a good digital way of life, and how can we make this technology help us towards it. And
to also, I guess, remain humans as much as possible.
And shape it the way we want it to be, and not the way someone in Silicon Valley wants us to be.
Thank you. Pawel, what are you excited about?
The fundamental shift. So I'm most excited because it's a generation shift. So our generation has not, we didn't go to the moon. We very likely will not go to Mars yet. Yeah, maybe very young people will get to go to Mars. But what we will experience in our lifetime is a single biggest shift that humanity has experienced. So I'm excited that it's even far more impactful than the introduction of the internet. And if you think about the world before the internet started, how we were differently connected and how intertwined and connected we are today to each other, right? And to technology. You can imagine how will the world look like in 12 months, in 24 months. And that's very exciting to me, that it's a platform shift that will impact everything. And we get to participate this time. Yeah, now we get to play along. We get to build together in that shift. So that's extremely exciting to me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you to three of you for this exciting conversation. You get a chance now to test Dave for a bit. And at 10:30, we can continue with our next panel discussion. We're going to raise the question, I trust you. Do you trust AI? Thanks a lot.